why did he do that? And by the way, these are the 7 churches, and the letter went from Patmos to Ephesus. Most likely Ephesus planted all the other 7 churches, so Ephesus probably planted these 6. And the first letter that Jesus wrote went to Ephesus. The next one goes to the next church closest, which is called Smyrna. Today, Izmir. I mean, it's still there. It's a big Turkey city. In fact, if you're landing, and Bonnie and I love to go to Turkey, and I mean, I teach in Turkey, and it's a wonderful place. This is Izmir. I mean, all of its high rises and everything, but I put a circle around that. If you're landing into Izmir and look out the window, you see that kind of green patch? It's a little foggy out the airplane window. That is biblical Smyrna. They built a city around it, but they've left that part because it was such a famous spot. It's the agora, that's the Greek word, or the forum, that's the Latin word for that place. The first thing, now let's look at chapter 2 of Revelation and verse 8. And to the angel of the church in Smyrna, so you've already seen the part of Smyrna that was there when this letter came, write, these things says the first and the last who was dead and came to life. And then, my first point to you, this church was struggling. Their pastor, Polycarp, got burnt alive at the stake. He was 86 years old. You know what his testimony is? It's recorded in church history. He said, 86 years have I followed my Lord. How can I stop following him today? Because they told him all he had to do is forsake Christ, and they wouldn't burn him alive at the stake. I mean, what a challenge. You're 86, and it already hurts to live. Do you want to be slowly burnt alive? Because burning alive is an awful way to go, because the fire takes so long to get your whole body hot enough that it shocks you and causes your heart to stop. It's really not a pleasant death. But Polycarp died for the Lord faithfully. But only Jesus understands our struggle. He describes himself as, I've already gone through all this stuff you're going through. You're being threatened with your life. You're suffering persecution. You don't know the future. You don't know how the Romans are going to end your life. They were facing fatal persecutions. He knows what we're facing, and Jesus said, I'm going to help you. Remember I told you that Jesus walking around the 7 golden lampstands is kind of like a coach walking around coaching his team. Jesus is in the midst of the 7 churches. He's watching all of them, and it isn't that he's trying to whack them every time they do something wrong. He's trying to tell them to stay in the game, to be a little representative of me. You need to act like me. You need to think like me. You need to talk like me. That's what a coach does. Jesus says, I understand your struggles. And I'm the only person that can be with you all the time and help you. And that's what the Christian life's all about. Verse 9, look what he says. I know your works, your tribulation, your poverty, but you're rich. I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews. These people were not only getting physical abuse, they were getting verbal abuse. They were being mistreated physically and emotionally. The Jews were giving them horrible verbal abuse. Now, just for you to know from church history, the only reason Christianity wasn't immediately extinguished by the Romans is, to the Roman government, they couldn't tell the difference between Christians and Jews. Because Christianity kind of flowed out of the same book, this Holy Bible, which was called the Tanakh, or the Hebrew, what we call the Old Testament. That's what they taught from. When Paul was teaching in the synagogues, he didn't pull out, hey, I'm going to use my book of Romans or whatever. He was teaching them from the Old Testament and explaining it. And then as the Lord inspired the New Testament authors, they were writing the New Testament, but the primary religious holy book was the Old Testament. So to the Romans, they both have the same book. They're both weird. They believe in only one God. They act differently. They're very, and some of them are like being little messiahs. See, Christos, is the Greek version of the Hebrew word Mashiach. The anointed one, the one that fulfills all the promises of God. That's what Messiah means. So when you say Christ, you're saying the Messiah, the anointed one, the one that fulfills all the promises of God. And to the Romans, they were the same. So only Jesus understood there. Now remember, the primary way to understand the Bible, Jonathan told me at lunch yesterday that one of you must have said to him when he told you that he has, what was it, 3 views of Hebrews or something, I don't know. And he said they went, oh, there's only one view or one proper interpretation. I was so proud of you that you listened and said that. But there is only one. But after a whole lifetime for me of reading the Bible, far more than 100 times, there are still passages, I'm going, what is the one interpretation of that? Because God is so powerfully understanding everything, and I'm so humanly weak not understanding everything. So there are a few passages in the Bible that great Bible teachers have always been unsure about. None of them have to do with salvation. None of them have to do with anything about the doctrine of the Trinity or the atonement. But the application, maybe, of the atonement is one that there's great diversion on. And the Hebrews chapter 6 and 10 and a few other places are hard. But Jesus, to the original people getting this, they got it. Jesus understands our struggle. He was dead and alive. Guess what? We can apply that to us. I'm not in Smyrna. It's not the first century. But it's becoming all around me a culture like the first century. We are increasing. Did you know I teach publicly. Google represents me. What I'm teaching here, a group of people are going to edit, and it's going to go out, and Google's going to put it out. And you know what? Whenever I say something they don't like, they give me what's called a strike. You know what a strike is for a YouTube channel? They take it off the air. Now, Vimeo already took me off. All 4,500 classes I had on Vimeo, they turned them off in one instant because I said something in a message that is not part of their socially accepted audience. So I'm saying we're living in a culture that's getting close. You can be shut down. You can be taken offline. You can be banned in America for saying something contrary to public opinion. They don't yet imprison or burn us at the stake. They were headed that way. And this is what Jesus said. I understand what you're going through, and I'm your greatest, now here's an English word, sympathizer. In Greek, it's sum, S-U-M, patheo. With, to feel. Patheo means to feel. So Jesus is our with feeler. He feels things with us. In fact, you know what? If I was teaching the 4 Gospels, the 89 chapters of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, do you know what? If you read those, you would find the most frequent emotion of Jesus Christ recorded in the Bible is compassion. Wow. He was described most often expressing the emotion of compassion. Now, compassion is, it's kind of like the byproduct of this feeling together. And compassion is another Greek word. It's an interesting one. It's the word splanknoi, and it means intestines. Now, back in the Bible world, they did not say, I love you with all my heart. They said, I love you with all my intestines. In fact, on Valentine's Day, do you know what they gave everybody? Chocolate colons. I'm teasing. What do we give on Valentine's Day? Chocolate what? Hearts. That's because in the Western world of today, we think that we love from the heart. But they said, no, the seat of emotion is not the heart. The seat of the emotion is where you feel things deeply. Have you ever been scared and you feel your stomach tightening up? Have you ever been excited? Like someone's driving and they come to one of those little rises in the road and they step on it and the car kind of goes up on its springs and it kind of goes up in the air and you go, whoa, where do you feel that? See, the Greek said you feel it in your splanknoi, right here. Do you know what the Bible says when Jesus saw people in need? His splanchnoi went, mm. The Greek word is he was moved at the deepest level in his splanchnoi, at the seat of his emotions, what we would say is the heart. Jesus is the one that feels with us.